Strange objects have been reported since the beginning of recorded history. Some a foot or so wide, others 30 feet or more. This woodcut from Nuremberg dates back to 1561. And this one, also from Germany, appeared in 1566. Usually the objects are reported to be circular or cigar-shaped. The earliest known photograph was taken in Mexico in 1883. Several hundred objects were seen crossing the sun, and simultaneous sightings were reported from Mexico City and Puebla. Hundreds of thousands of photographs have been taken. Most have been dismissed as fakes, but this one, taken over Oregon in 1950, has never been satisfactorily explained. In January 1958, a Brazilian naval vessel was engaged in marine research off an island in the Atlantic when a strange object was sighted over the sea. It was seen simultaneously by a number of observers gathered on the deck. One of them, an expert photographer, took these pictures. The object moved at low speed over the mountains and disappeared briefly behind a peak. It was then seen again, flying away at high speed before it disappeared. This film was taken by an amateur photographer in Montana in 1950. It's been analysed over and over again. Some people see two round silvery craft. Others believe it's two Air Force jets, reflecting the sunlight as they circle to land at a nearby airport. Alleged UFO sightings are always the subject of intense investigation and speculation. An ATV camera unit were filming in a field in Oxfordshire in 1971 when they saw a bright orange ball in the sky. People in 6 other locations in the district later reported sightings as well. After some seconds, the object moved off, leaving a vapor trail. Many theories, including jets unloading fuel, have been offered as explanations, and the cameraman included a foreground shot to show that there was no trickery. Detailed examination and inquiries about the film seem to eliminate conventional jets or planes, and these pictures imply enormous changes of speed. Then, at 9 o'clock on a morning in 1973, a building surveyor, Peter Day, filmed this red ball in Buckinghamshire from his stationary car. Other people in the area also saw something at the same time. Coincidentally, 45 minutes later, a plane crash was reported in the area. This last frame of film is the subject of speculation. The object can no longer be seen, and if the camera wasn't jogged, the trees appear to be bent by some huge force. In January 1976, film was taken of the British Concorde travelling at subsonic speed. At one stage, the film shows what appears to be an object descending below Concorde, then ascending to travel parallel with it, and finally moving away over the top at great speed. This is what was seen. And here it is again in slow motion. British Airways believe it was caused by a foreign particle in the optical mechanism of the camera filming Concorde. This sequence was filmed in America a few years ago. Thousands of people saw an object in the sky in the Rocky Mountain states. Hundreds of people reported it. Dozens photographed it. This film was shot by a tourist, and it shows, in fact, a huge fireball, a boulder about the size of a 3-story house, skimming the Earth's atmosphere in Wyoming and travelling on into space. But it's no longer the objects in the skies that are stirring the imagination. Like the angels of history, reports have come of flying men, humanoids, arriving in chariots from the skies. Glastonbury, Stonehenge. Now, this is classic flying saucer country.
Yes, absolutely. And we often imagine that if we were flying in a direct line over here, in fact, we would be on a straight course exactly between Stonehenge, which is to our east here, at the top of the barn, if we were looking down the top of the barn, and straight in line with that would be Glastonbury towards the west.
And you, Arthur Shuttlewood, are famous, or to some people notorious, as one of the great...
Notorious, I think, yes.
In any way?
I think, really. Yes, I'm afraid I'm listed among the, quote, nuts, unquote, or sometimes not quote at all brigade, certainly because of my way-out views. But they've only been inculcated in me because of what we've seen and what we've experienced, and fortunately have been experienced by many others in the world. Don't forget that I started out as a hard-headed, ultra-realistic type of journalist, and we've got to be sticklers for absolute fact. The strangest thing, in fact, that ever happened to me personally on these hills here was when I went up a little defile near Cradle Hill, at the top of Cradle Hill, where there's an army rubbish refuse dump. And I went along this little track because I could see clearly, or fairly clearly anyway, the glowing to my right and glowing to my left. That appeared to be circular, that appeared to be cylindrical, and in front of me a rather large light that lit up the trees in front of me. And I was drawn, because it appeared to be the nearest of the three, I was drawn towards the light in front, and I thought, well, I'm pretty certain that's UFO. I couldn't explain what that was. It wasn't anything conventional, and I hastened towards it. But then I was aware of being lifted off the ground, literally, and I was aware of some energy coming from the lights at either side, which had closed in, rather frighteningly. But I wasn't frightened, I just teetered in mid-air, if you like, several feet up, obviously, and I just couldn't feel any pressure under my legs at all, and I'd stopped running, and my legs were simply gangling about like this without any foundation to tread upon. And this went on, perhaps I was hovering in this sort of fashion, and yet still being propelled slowly forward for a good half minute or more. And that is gospel truth.
Did you fall down?
It was the most amazing experience I ever had. No, I didn't fall. I was simply lowered very gently back to the earth.
The Flying Saucer Review is the main journal in Britain which collects all the data about all the strange things. For instance, figures like this, humanoid figures. This one, I think, reported from Finland. Extraordinary details of saucers coming down, people being affected by rays. The magazine is full of teleportation, stories of cars being moved from one place to another. Now, Charles Bowen is the editor of this. You've spent years collecting all this data. What's it all about?
I'd like to know what it's all about. I've been involved with this myself for something like 12 years, closely, as editor of the review. We get reports from all over the world, particularly from South America, everywhere, practically.
Is there any pattern?
There are small patterns from time to time, small patterns in visual features of these alleged occupants of these flying saucers or UFOs, call them what you will. People report these things. A lot of them obviously think they have seen something real. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. The fact remains that it is largely a nocturnal phenomenon, and people who often report them are people who are out working at night. Doctors on call, nurses, police, soldiers, all people like this. A lot of them very highly responsible people. A lot of them people of high intellectual standard. Now all this leads you to ideas. You begin to get ideas about this subject. And ideas are, what are they doing? What is going on? We haven't a clue what is going on. But what we do know is that the people are very honest, usually, who describe these things. Very seldom do we come across deliberate hoaxes. I mean, there's no point in it because they begin to look ridiculous the moment they start speaking about these things. And we suspect that the UFOs, which bring them, are controlled. Whether or not these creatures that are seen are the control of the UFOs, or whether they are merely projections from them, is another matter. the way they behave, the way they sort of float over the surface of a muddy field, and all this seems to suggest that there may be projections which are from the object into the minds of the beholders. This is one possibility. Then what is going on? We don't know. Are they some sort of attempt to control human beings? Do they select simple people for this purpose? Select them and work on them. The idea of control is not something new in the human, in the world of the human beings. I mean, ancient religions have all sought to suggest that there is control from their deity. Jehovah and the Israelites, Allah, other people control their people. So the idea of control is nothing new, but this is a modern form of control in a modern frame of reference. Are these things coming from extraterrestrial sources?